Beginning on the night of June 12, 1998, following nights of intense UFO activity in Cambridgeshire and Norfolk, hundreds of Brits watched as a spherical blue UFO flew over the UK from Cornwall to Staffordshire. Hundreds of skywatchers bombarded authorities with calls about a flaming blue ball hurtling towards Earth. Pilots alerted control towers about the fiery object. 8 police forces launched probes. In the end, authorities came to the conclusion that the spherical blue UFO was actually a meteor shower. The very next night, on Saturday, June 13, 5 black helicopters were seen flying northward over Port Washington, Wisconsin, by a local man named Bob Mueller. Mueller reported that he saw black helicopters fly over his house on Saturday night and again on Sunday night. On both days, 5 helicopters flew over, then came back a few hours later, heading south. They looked like UH-60 Black Hawk gunships, with a capacity of about a dozen troopers apiece. There were no markings, and their low visibility paint scheme made them hard to see. On Sunday, June 14, at about 11 p.m., Mueller went out to his car to get something and observed a moving, flashing orange light very high in the sky, directly overhead. When it flashed, it was very bright, so much so it reflected off my car and glasses and caught my attention enough so that I had to look up. It appeared to be moving in a straight line. The UFO was heading due north, the same heading and virtually along the same path as the helicopters. Bob ran indoors to get his wife Michelle, but when the couple reached the yard 30 seconds later, the UFO was gone. Bob was left to wonder if the Black Hawk helicopter activity was somehow connected to the sighting of this weird object. Also on June 13, the same night Bob was observing the bizarre helicopter activity, another couple were having an encounter while driving in their car. At 9:35 p.m. that evening, a couple was driving south on Route 45 from Woodbury, New Jersey, to their home in Mullica Hill. As the wife glanced in the direction of the Gloucester County Public Library, she noticed strange lights in the sky. There were 3 or 4 red and blue-red lights in a straight line. The wife asked, "What is that?" Her husband, sitting behind the steering wheel, did not look. As she watched, the lights followed their car and changed to all white lights. She asked, "Can a plane's lights change color?" Again, her husband did not respond. When they finally arrived home and pulled into the driveway, the object moved over the treetops to the right side of the backyard and stopped. She asked her husband, "What is that?" "I don't know," he replied. "Maybe it's a helicopter." After he went indoors, the wife walked to the backyard to get a better view of the object and noticed that there was no sound coming from it. The object moved a little at a time very slowly and finally rested on the left side of the backyard above their suburban home. It was just hovering, barely moving about 80 feet from the ground. All of a sudden, according to the witness, the outside lights on the craft turned off and the inside lights came on. There were 3 decks or 3 landings that lit up one after another. Later, she noticed 3 white lights underneath the craft. Despite the interior lights of the craft turning on, at no point did the witness indicate that she observed the craft's occupants. After watching the UFO for 10 to 15 minutes, the woman went inside the house. The next day, the woman felt unusually tired and noticed a bruise on her thigh with 3 pointed ends. She did not have this bruise the day before. June 13, 1998 is also the date of another weird UFO report, this one involving an encounter with a reptilian being. Miami, Florida, at nighttime, a woman named Mrs. Kinston was in her backyard with her dog when she heard a loud whistle and felt a strong rush of wind. The dog retreated back into the house while Kinston remained outside. Moments later, a metallic disc-shaped craft descended to about 10 meters above the ground. Then, a bizarre greenish, scaly-skinned creature described as a cross between a reptile and a human suddenly materialized on the ground underneath the UFO. Kinston could not believe what she was seeing. She became quite frightened and attempted to run, but the humanoid stared at her with bright, shiny eyes that caused her to become paralyzed. She could not move, she could not scream. She watched as the creature began to look around the area, collecting items from the ground and placing them inside a sort of backpack. At this point, her dog Teeny ran out of the house towards the humanoid. Mrs. Kinston can only watch in horror as the creature grabbed her dog and swallowed him whole. The creature eventually finished what he was doing and re-entered the craft, which took off, disappearing into the night sky. The case was reported by Thiago Luis Techetti of EBEET, quoting UFO BBS. I recently received a copy of Albert Rosales' book, UFOs over Florida, and this case was one of the ones that most interested me. I reached out to Albert about it. Rosales, a law enforcement officer in Miami, told me that he attempted to track down the witness, but to date has been unsuccessful.